Welcome. I'm sitting here with a CFL alumni great player. Played for Ottawa Rough Riders and the Calgary Stampeders, JT Hay. Thank you, JT.
Thank you, and it's great to be here in Toronto and great to see Calgary and Ottawa going at it.
Well, you started back in 1978. You started with the Ottawa Rough Riders. I think from 78 over to, or correction, from 79 over to 88, you played for the Calgary Stampeders. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to start back to when you were a kid and you were growing up. Who are some of the great CFL players that you admired and you wanted to inspire to be like?
Back then, there was a lot of great players. You got to think of when I grew up, the two teams that were very strong at that time were Hamilton and Winnipeg. They had a lot of Grey Cup appearances. The Ottawa Rough Riders, with Russ Jackson, Bo Scott. There was a Mo Racine who grew up in my area. I lived east of the Ottawa area growing up. He was a kicker also. And there were so many great ones, and funny enough, at that time, my Western team was always the Calgary Stampeders, so I've always felt very fortunate to be able to play 1 year in Ottawa, then the rest of my career out in Calgary.
The position of kicker, if you take a look at it, I mean, if your front line doesn't hold, you have 10 players coming at you. So when you're kicking the ball, what's the first thing that's going through your mind?
Actually, I never even thought of it that way. Football is such a team game. You got 12 guys on the field at all times, and football is the one sport where everyone has to do their job. And if one person fails, then the play fails. So, as a kicker, you rely heavily on your center and holder, but you also rely on the people that are blocking for you. And if you are a team, you play for each other, and you believe in your teammates. It's going to be done, and so you don't worry about it.
Some of the players that during your playing days, who are some of the great players that you can remember that played in front of you and they actually protected you when you're kicking?
There's been a number of players that have been great. I'm not sure if you want to talk about the offensive linemen or whatever like that, but some of the guys had the great opportunity to play with, especially when my first year in Ottawa. You got Tommy Clements, you got Conridge Holloway, Tony Gabriel, the Jeff Averys, the offensive line. Don Smith was the center there, and an excellent center. Charlie Brandon. You got me thinking now. I'm going back about 40 years here. So then I was fortunate that you get traded to Calgary. And when I got out there, you got guys like John Huffnagel, Tommy Forsani, Bob Vickers, the Forsani family, just a lot of great guys. And the thing is, when you look at who the guys were in front of you that you respect, whether they're a receiver, a quarterback, a lineman, we always have each other's backs, and it's no different than what you did in your career. And you're out there to protect each other, and you all want to win. So to put out certain names, it's tough, but there have been a lot of great players and great athletes that don't get the accreditation that they should get, but it's a team game, and again, we all play the game because we love it.
I know that you're also on the Calgary Walk of Hall of Fame.
Calgary Stampeder Wall of Fame, yes, and when you look at that list, it was on there. There's a great number of great individuals, from Wayne Harris Jr., Herm Harrison, John Helton, my favorite kicker, Larry Robinson, who's also in the CFL Hall of Fame. And all those names I mentioned are in the CFL Hall of Fame. So Doug Flutie, Dave Sapunjas, there's just a lot of great athletes, Stu Laird's, and when you look at all these guys that are on the Stampeder Wall of Fame, what makes you proud to be there, and part of that criteria to be on that is your involvement in the community also. So it's a very rewarding touch.
As we're looking at the CFL nowadays, I know that the Toronto Argonauts are under new ownership right now. They're starting to emphasize, working within the community. Do you want to talk about, when you're a player playing with Ottawa and then playing with Calgary, and even now that you're an alumni player, how important do you feel it is for the CFL players that are current players and retired to still remain important role models within the community?
First of all, I was a kid growing up, and I always admired it when a pro athlete would take the time out to for the fan, even just ask for an autograph. And I remember going to a hockey game early in my life when I was only about 7 or 8 years old, and went to the Montreal Forum, took the train from Alexandria, an hour, and our minor hockey team went there, and there's Gordie Howe signing autographs for you after the game, and he was probably there for an hour after the game. So I always thought it was an obligation, if you did make it pro, that be there for the fans, and they're the ones that are going to they're the ones that pay your salary. So, but I certainly expected to do that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. You meet a lot of great people. In Toronto's case here now, they're really a kind of a new team again, looking for a new identity. And again, just being from Ottawa, my first year in Ottawa, they had numerous quarterback clubs in the community. Now, I grew up in the Alexandrian area, about an hour's drive. But the Ottawa Football Club had about 15 quarterback clubs. Some were at breakfast, some were at lunch, and some were in the evenings. And they've always had one or two players that would be in attendance for all those. And they built a great relationship up with the fans and a trust. And I can't remember who the player was right now. It might have been Mike Woodger. He just said, as long as you're out there and once they get to meet you, they're never going to boo you. They're going to be your greatest supporters. So, anyways, that's my story in Ottawa. Then I got traded to Calgary, another community that's very strong-minded. At that time, the club was owned by the community, and again, they really preached on doing volunteer work, getting involved with whoever you can, and the Calgary Stampeders still do that to this day. And the Red Blacks back in town and having success are doing that now. And again, look at the plan that the Red Blacks put together, and they're sold out every game now, and their fans love them. And I think within a year or two, the Argonauts will be back there also.
What are some nonprofit organizations that are really close to your heart that you'd like to briefly talk about?
I think the main, I was fortunate when I was finished playing. The first guy shortly after I got released was Herm Harrison invited me. I was on a Friday evening just to meet up for a couple cocktails after, and just discussed saying how important it was to be involved in the community. And at that time, Herm was the president of the Stampeder Alumni Football Club, and he a tremendous ambassador, not only for the Stampeders, but for the league in itself. And he was always giving. Now, there are numerous, there's charities out there that are, in some way, shape, or form, we're involved in quite a few of them. But I think the one that Herm was instrumental in also was with our CFL Alumni Association, and how we're doing things now, how we can get back to the communities individually, provincially, and across the country. So, and a lot of that is doing some work now and being involved with the military with our Alumni Association.
I know you have a brother-in-law that served in the military too.
Yes, he was in the military for 27 years, and like yourself, has been all over the world, and it's a great sacrifice that you guys do. You can be away from your home base for several months at a time, and it's certainly it's got to be hard on families, but you always pull together, and it shows great strength.
Well, I want to thank you for your time there, JT.
You're welcome. My pleasure.